What's up, everybody? It's John, which is not normally how I introduce myself on the internet these days. I go by Saria a lot more than I go by my birth name. The title of this video is not meant to be clickbait. This is just a gratitude-oriented update video, although I'm not going to use the R word, but my career with tricking has definitely fallen into a deep canyon, and I don't know if I have the motivation to climb out of it. But there are a few reasons why I wanted to make this video, and one of them is that this channel might see a little bit more activity. Anyone who has ever followed any of my creative accounts online knows that I am not a reliable source of content, and so I'm not going to promise too much, but I do have a couple of samplers using footage from 2016 and 2017 pretty close to done. That's been a very unexpected and massive gift of leaving so much tricking footage sitting around for years and years. Now I get to look back on all of that and make new videos with all of that footage and relive it and experience it anew. It's so incredible. I've been having a lot of fun looking at that footage and editing new videos with it. It's still a bit weird to grapple with mentally because I still feel like I'm that same person and I can do all of the same tricks that I used to in my peak. And then when I go outside and I just walk around and I just move, I get completely different signals from my body and from my mind. And that's difficult every day. And I imagine that a lot of trickers who have gone through any decline period of any sort, that's something that we all go through. And especially as we all age and we reach years where our body is going to be prevented from doing certain things no matter what we do, there's a lot that we're all going to be working through. And I'm so glad that one of the hallmarks of tricking itself is recording ourselves and archiving ourselves for the world and for ourselves. So that can always stay with us, at least as long as we're able to keep the footage and have it be available. I've already kind of gone off onto some rambling tangents without providing a baseline for what this video is actually about. Again, if you know me, yeah, that tracks. So, gratitude, I mentioned that this video was kind of about that. I'm grateful to just about every single aspect of tricking, period. And there's way too much for me to sit here in a video that I expect anyone to watch for me to go through and list absolutely everything that has changed my life for the better. I've got to start with where it all started for me, which is the Tricker House, NTBS, that crew in Akron, Ohio, the boys that took me under their wing immediately, and SGTF after them. Let's face it, I was a weird kid who grew up into a pretty freaking weird adult. I'm getting weirder by the day. And I was ostracized by basically all of my peers in school. It wasn't universally true. I had some friends, I had people who at least tolerated me and didn't make me feel like the scum of the earth, but I still never had a place in my life where I felt completely accepted until I started tricking. The Tricker House guys did nothing but encourage me and lift me up and give me all of that acceptance. And they made my parents feel safe about the whole thing. It was a big leap for me. I was young. I wasn't as young as a lot of trickers that start out these days. I was 16 years old, but I was a pretty sheltered kid, and the Tricker House helped my parents accept tricking as a healthy part of my life that they could encourage themselves. I really still cannot believe how lucky I was to just happen to live in such an unbelievably strong region for tricking. And I just happened to be at a good age getting into it at the right time as that community was growing and exploding and pushing the envelope constantly. And that's so much of the reason for why I got as far as I did as a tricker with my skill, and why I was able to have the experiences I did with it through gatherings and meeting other people that I looked up to for years, and meeting new people that I had no idea how much I would eventually respect. And so much of tricking and the people in it almost gave me a chance to grow up into somebody who could have confidence in himself, someone who could believe in himself. You all nurtured me, and you all accepted me. You all seemed to get me. And even when I didn't make sense and was kind of an oddball and maybe maladjusted socially, none of that seemed to bother anybody that much in the tricking community. You all still seemed to want to be around me and want to springboard me to success. And that is just one of the most incredible, pervasive things about the entire tricking community, is how much we all root for each other. And I didn't realize how special that is. There are other communities like it, you know, things with cultures that just kind of happen that way, like skateboarding and things like that. It's more fun for us to root for each other and make each other stronger so that we can spend more time celebrating everybody's successes. It just feels good when that happens. And I've talked about this a bit on my tennis channel, which, yes, I have one of those, but being a part of the tennis community, after being a part of the tricking community, gave me a lot of perspective, and I actually mention tricking a lot in that channel, especially as I talk about the tennis world and my experiences with that through my time with tennis, because I realized the tennis world is so different. It doesn't have those same foundations of celebrating each other and building each other up and rooting for everybody else along with ourselves. And when I talk about all that stuff, I never mean it as a dismissal of the tennis community. I'm not trying to drag it down. That's the last thing I want to do. That's the last impression that I want to leave on that community, because I see things that I feel are hurting that community, and I don't want to be a part of hurting it. But it still was culture shock after coming from the tricking community. It took me years to learn how to accept that the tennis community and the tennis world are not like that. They're not the same. That's okay. I've accepted it now. But it also helped me to appreciate the tricking community even more. So if you were wondering why I'm suddenly talking about tennis, no, it's not to rub in your face the fact that I'm playing tennis a lot more than I'm training for tricking. It's to say that it helped me appreciate how special and how awesome the tricking community is even more. And no, the tricking community and the tricking world are not perfect, not even close. Goodness gracious, we're so flawed in so many ways. But we're an activity and a collective of human beings. Of course it's going to be impossibly flawed. But as we trick and as we train and as we meet other trickers and we all participate in that big dance, it's such a cool frickin' thing to be able to have in life. Life is weird and the world is really weird. This is a ridiculously frickin' divided world, and that's a part of tricking as well, and the culture of tricking. One of the core elements of tricking culture from the beginning has been disagreements and beefs and politics seeping into the blood of discussion, because trickers are such freaking passionate people that try to connect things like combos and express themselves to the max, because tricking is absolutely one of the most robust forms of expression I've ever come into contact with. You think of a trick, you think of a combo, you can just do that. You can perform it any way that you want to. You can make it look how you want. You can connect the moves any way you want. You can do any trick into and out of any trick. That was my mantra that I tried to catch on, but I was never cool enough or good enough. I was never that relevant. Let's not go on this tangent right now. The point is, tricking just naturally brings so much out of you, and it's such an intense activity, and it feels like it gives you so many new connections in life, not just between people, but the way you perceive reality. I was one of the only trickers who never did any drugs or drank any alcohol or anything. I was all straight-laced all the way through. The first time I ever did pot was in a legal state just like 2 years ago. It wasn't even with trickers. That's wild to me. Actually, no, I did it a few years before that, but it didn't actually make me high. Why am I going on this tangent now? John Franks, everybody. Did you miss me? This is all a very long-winded ramble as just all of it hits me. Just how special tricking is and how freaking cool it is that I was able to have it in my life for any amount of time, and that I will hopefully continue to have it in my life as long as possible. Hopefully, and even if I live a long and full life, up to the very day that I die. Will I be doing dubs at age 95 and beyond? That would be interesting. Might not feel very good. Probably not, but that's not the only value that tricking has, is always being at your performance peak and constantly doing bigger and better things. That's one part of it. So many other parts of it will be with me forever. SGTF, NEOTricks, I mentioned you briefly early on here. You boys were the first to officially include me as a part of a branded team. That meant so much to me, and I kind of asked for it. I wistfully invited myself in a way, and the answer was not no, and that meant the world to me. Again, I was never one of the leading presences of that team. I was never one of the people who was pushing the very top of the sport, but it was still such a pleasure to be a part of it at all. And it's still such a pleasure to know that those boys are still out there, that I could probably call any one of you guys right now and you'd probably be happy to talk. That's really cool. I tend to not be a talker these days. I am ridiculously introverted in the actual literal sense, where I have to spend a lot of time alone to have energy at all. And in also the more figurative sense, where I don't tend to talk to people very much as a hobby. And I apologize to a lot of people who may have wanted to have me in their lives a lot more than I've been and than I probably will be. And this is a chance for me to say, especially if we weren't ever super close, chances aren't super high that if you sent me a DM and any social media, which I almost never check for one thing, that I will have a good chance of responding to you. And if that's the case, it's not personal. It's not you, it's me. But that doesn't mean that I'm never going to talk to anybody in the tricking community ever again. That's far from what I'm saying. It's just, I'm a very quiet person, even more so these days than I ever used to be, and very reclusive. And that's part of why I ended up not going to sessions as much and not being around as much in the online spaces. I've changed a lot as a person in the last 10 years or so. A lot has happened in here that's been tough to deal with in the last 7 or 8 years or so. That's been very frustrating and debilitating. As much as I really want it to not be true, it's been like endlessly tall diamond walls in my brain for a long time, and that's part of what's made it really hard for me to keep up training tricking as hard as I ever used to. Not to mention the physical crap. My lower back is not in great shape, guys, and if I stretched at all, maybe I wouldn't be aching and slow like I am every single day when I'm just moving around and doing everyday activities. But that leads to my biggest problem, is that I am so freaking lazy and I never have ever done any of that stuff. I've never stretched as much as I should have. I've never done strengthening exercises like I should have. I've always just gone to sessions and been like, I want to do these tricks. I'm just gonna go and do these tricks and hopefully it works. And man, that worked way better than it ever should have for a long time. Yeah, I warmed up and stuff and cooled down a little bit, but I basically never did any disciplined stuff as a tricker that could supplement me in my growth and in my maintenance especially. So I'm paying the price. I probably could have had a longer time near my peak if I had done any of those things, and I probably wouldn't have plummeted as hard as I did had I done those things, because man, my body is not happy with me. I still work out basically every single day, but it's mostly just cardio, basically just jogging with very short sprints at the end of the workout just to make myself feel like I did something. And quite a bit of tennis here and there, which is just an unbelievably difficult sport. I took to tricking way faster than I am taking to tennis, and I doubt I'll get half as good at tennis ever throughout my entire life as I got at tricking in 3 years. But again, that just gives me more perspective as I look back on tricking, and it helps me appreciate the amount that I've been able to achieve as a tricker even more. And that brings me back to this. Like, again, I was never that relevant. I was always just a couple of years behind the power meta of tricking. I got a lot of the big holy grails of tricking, but I got them too slow for them to really matter that much to a grand scale of people. I might have been the exactly 100th person to join the Dub Dub Club on Facebook in 2013. So that tells you how far along dubbing was when I got my first one. And that can kind of explain in a nutshell just about where I sat in tricking in terms of my ranking-ish. I might have been like top 100, but that's incredibly subjective, and I don't think anyone could ever make like tricking rankings that the community would agree with, because we're all so keen to express ourselves and we all have such passion for it and we all celebrate the fluidity of it. And that's part of why there is resistance for taking tricking to more marketable brands and doing that stuff with it. Tricking is one of the most individual things I've ever seen, and it celebrates that, and it encourages that, and it allows us to find ourselves like that. And one of the things that's beautiful about tricking is that even though I think we will always argue about all of these things because we all see tricking differently and we all have different views on where it should go and things that should or should not be done with it, and when it even comes to tricks themselves, like how they should be performed and what makes tricks count as landed and how often you need to do them for you to actually be considered as an active user of a said trick, have your dub license, which I need to renew big time. Even with all of that, we are a thoroughly open-minded community that can agree to disagree. And that's something that is just so ridiculously rare. I'm finding that out more and more as time passes and I get older, and I interact with human frickin' beings all over the place. I'm a bit out of the loop, admittedly. I haven't been around the tricking scene pretty much at all in the last 7 years or so. I completely stopped keeping up with the social media mayhem that mostly moved to Instagram, and I just never felt at home there. Not because I didn't feel at home with the tricking community, just the format of Instagram just wasn't my thing, and I never really could settle into it. It didn't feel like there was much point to doing one of my main cornerstones of my tricking experience, which was make samplers, which I'm about to start doing again, by the way. So it's not like there's a law that says no one is allowed to make samplers ever again. Things just changed, and that happens. It's not that things will never be like they used to be ever again. When things change, it's that that's the way it is, and you have to be ready for change. So if the tricking community and culture is completely different from how I left it around 7 years ago, that would be okay. And it would take some adjustment, but I would come to accept that at the very least, and probably learn to love it as much as I ever did. But something tells me in my heart that y'all are pretty much the same bunch that you always were. Trickers are trickers, man. Aren't you glad you clicked on this video for such profound statements as that? It may surprise you to know that my day job is not philosophy. What was I talking about? Have I really been talking about anything that centralized this entire time, or Have I just been saying words as they appear in my brain? I think we all know the answer, but I mean, if you're enjoying this in any way, if you even find it actually cohesive or meaningful, or like it has any point, I'm glad. If you've made it this far, thank you. Are you doing okay? This is a heavy dose of John Frank's Saria person. I need to start genuinely working on being a bit less self-effacing to my very core. Because tricking did make me truly believe in myself and have some actual swagger, like I was the man. And that's the thing, like tricking and its community, all of you guys, allowed me to be able to find that exact niche of who I am, and you all encouraged that. I will never have like that alpha male tough guy swagger that other people aspire to have. I don't ever see myself wanting to have that, but man, is it fun to run with testosterone sometimes, and I learned to manifest that in my way, in ways that felt right to me, and you all have always let me do it my way, and I can't express enough how grateful I am for that, because so many people in life, so many things in life, so much of life demands you to sit in a very small box and never leave. And that's part of why I'm not really that concerned with making a video like this where I'm laying my heart out bare, because you all have always let me be me. And so not only were basically all of you incredible to be around and have as friends, you helped me learn how to find more of those friends for myself in other parts of the world. You helped me learn how to cultivate environments full of people that I can surround myself with that make my life better and that make me a better person and that are there for me. As I actually trained in the activity and tried to get as good as possible, you lifted me up, you encouraged me, you built me up, you gave me advice, you, at the very minimum, stayed out of my way. And I ended up achieving things that I never, ever, ever would have dreamed were even possible for any human being some years prior. And even once I found out what tricking was and I learned what a dub-dub was, I had pipe dreams of achieving a double full one day, and some small part of me, just rooted in hubris and almost narcissistic self-confidence, dared to dream that I could one day dub-dub as well, just like the people that had just done it for the first time in the entire world. I wanted to believe that I could be one of the very best at anything. I wanted to believe that I could be good at anything in life. Trombone is the closest I'd ever gotten at that point, and I wasn't even that good at that. But in my first year, in my first few months in the tricking community, everybody tried to make me as good as possible. And so I got pretty good pretty fast. And then suddenly, I was good at something. For once in my life, I was doing something kind of impressive. And immediately I got way better at trombone, and I got better at art, and you can just keep, the list goes on. It just changed everything. And even though a lot of frustrating things have happened in my life that seem to be holding me back, I will never give up on myself, ever. I will never believe that I can't do anything because of tricking and because of all of you. Again, it feels difficult to actually come up with a clear point to any of this, aside from just sort of vague general gratitude and rambling. But I guess I just want to express myself here on my tricking channel, which is the channel where I always felt like I was expressing myself more than any other thing I ever did in life. So I guess it makes sense to me. Maybe it doesn't to you, and that's okay. That's fine. Incredibly extensive navel gazing is certainly not for everyone, and I can hazard a guess that it's not even for a lot of people. So once again, if you've made it this freaking far, Thank you. I really hope you're enjoying this somehow, that you're getting something out of this positive. I wonder how much more there really is to say. I mean, I can just rattle off some names. Matt Milhone, John Vanek, Towels, everybody at the Trigger House. I'm gonna start forgetting their names. I'm so sorry. Raw Dog, Dallas, Sam, Tommy Case, Owen McIntyre, Ryan Posse, Tyler Powell, Jared DeFonso, Drew Donnelly, people in California, Mo Sarna, Austin and Kenna Harling. Thank you guys for hosting me in California. That was one of my favorite experiences in my entire life because you all were so freaking easy to be around and you made me feel at home. And it's a pretty cool area too, with a lot of good triggers. But I like being in that house and just being with all of you. Thank you again for having me twice, for hosting me. Me! Oh boy. Now that I'm getting this detailed with it, I'm going to forget some very important people and I'm gonna feel terrible about it. If you know that's one of you, I'm sorry and I see you. Even if I don't mention you by name, I absolutely appreciate every bit of the impact you had on my life. Pot! Not the drug, the person. That's one of the most amazing things related to tricking that I could possibly blurt out of context. Oh yeah, Michael Guthrie. Man, I was 3 months into tricking, and I sort of latched onto you at OMG 11. I just kept wafting over to wherever you were whenever I saw you, and Cole DeRuse, and both of you immediately took me under your wing. Wow. That will never stop feeling really meaningful to me. Cole had one of my favorite styles I'd ever seen up to that point, just ridiculously clean and sharp. And Michael was already one of the absolute best triggers in the world, and I was starstruck the moment I saw the very first trigger I recognized from videos, the moment we pulled into the parking lot for OMG 11, and that was Towels. I was like, oh my god, these people are actually real. And then when I saw Michael Guthrie, that feeling exploded big time, and I behaved basically as you would expect a shy and starstruck nerd to behave, which is just sort of awkwardly hang around on the outskirts of your bubble and prod at the bubble here and there. And Michael Guthrie and Cole DeRuse took a needle, popped the bubble themselves, and ushered me in so that I could be a part of the group. And Michael Guthrie has been unbelievably supportive of me from that moment forward. He was one of my biggest supporters. Every single time I remember that, it almost knocks me over. They say never meet your heroes. Not only did I meet the everyday heroes, but I was 3 months into having my first thought of maybe I can actually be one of these trigger people. And I met basically every single hero I could fathom existing in that community. I guess that's part of what keeps blowing me away, is that you all were just basically as good as you could have possibly been to me. Wow. All y'all. Seriously, like, anyone I ever spoke to, anyone at any of the gatherings that I went to, anyone who's ever commented on one of my videos or posts, man, almost all of you have been pretty freaking good to me. It's funny how, in some ways, it feels like it's only just now sinking in, but no, it's just a cyclical process. This just keeps going in a circle, where it sinks in, and then I go a long time without thinking about it, and then I remember, and it sinks in and just knocks me over again, and it just keeps going on and on. And I really hope it's like that for the rest of my life, but I also want to try and keep it closer to my heart, more than I've been doing. And who knows, Logically speaking, I have maybe 10 good years in me left where I can push the envelope and expect that my body can respond. At the very least, I do want to renew my dub-dub license. That is the clearest thing in my head. I don't really know what else I really want beyond that. I've really lost that fire. And now that I'm 30 years old, even if I didn't have all of my chronic injuries and wear and tear, and then the mental stuff on top of that, I would already need to be doing way more maintenance and strengthening and conditioning and stretching than I ever did in my entire experience with tricking. I would already have to be putting in way more time and effort into tricking than I ever have before, even if I were in the best case scenario of being 30 years old. And I don't know if I have that in me. I don't know if I have the motivation and the drive to put that much of my life aside to even really be able to consider tricking at a high level again. And I guess there's no guarantee that I ever would get back to a pretty high level, let alone go past some of my previous peaks. But that's not really what I'm thinking. I mean, what I'm thinking is the same as I ever thought, where I have no limits on myself. I would just want something, and then I'd get it. It didn't matter. I would just keep going for it until I got it. And I have a couple of regrets with tricking where I never ended up getting the thing. If I never get dub, I will always look back to that session in the Neo Halloween gathering and wonder what would have happened if my foot hadn't grazed the ground when I did the perfect dub swing setup. But sometimes that happens. If I do have to live the rest of my life wondering what could have been, with a couple of things, all I have to do is look basically at any other part of my tricking career. Why am I doing that? Yes, it's a career. And feel unbelievably grateful and proud of what I have done. And that takes a bit of the pressure off, which you can say, and you would have a point, is dangerous. If I ever want to have a chance to get back into this and grind again and be able to have a few more good years where I can throw dubs whenever I want to, and even dubs, and 15 gainer switches first try, having the amount of acceptance and pride that I have is dangerous for that, because it can lead to me being okay with not putting in the work to get back into this. If that's the case, it'll be a little bit weird, never being that strong again. But it's made me forever strong in a lot of other ways that do not atrophy by not tricking. And those things are really important, and I'm grateful for that too. But yeah, the one thing that is in my mind right now is, you know, someday, I don't know when I'll actually be arsed to do it, but yeah, I gotta get my dub license back, and I know that I can. I can't go outside and even land a cart dub right now if you told me to, but I just believe in myself. And I believe that if I want to renew my dub license enough, it's just absolutely no question that I will. Dub is tougher to say that with, and you know, maybe that's most of the issue. Maybe I didn't believe in myself enough to actually land that move, even when I was purely physically able to. I think I was too afraid of it. I was too afraid of putting in all the work and not actually getting it. And I mean, I guess that already happened, so what do I have to fear now? And that's kind of the way I'm approaching this, where I'm not using the R word. I feel retired in a lot of ways. I just use the R word. But I'm not saying I'm never going to do X trick ever. I'm never going to do X trick ever again. I'm never going to be anywhere near my peak level ever again. I just don't believe in those statements. It just doesn't compute to me. Because all I need is just a stray spark that happens to catch, and I'm gonna get good at tricking again. I could have any amount of madness left in me if the stars align. And if that's my mentality, I'm far less likely to go out there and grab it for myself. But man, if those stars do align, it's gonna be freaking fun. And it'll be wild to reclaim that strength after having lost it. That'll be a new way to enjoy tricking. It feels like there are basically infinite ways to enjoy tricking. Thank you for being a part of that. If you have been a supporter of this channel at any point, thank you for that as well. That's been a part of my journey and a part of my inspiration, is seeing people actually appreciating and admiring what I've achieved in tricking. And that used to be basically my sole motivating point. And that's another one of the reasons why I gravitated away from this, because that's one of the ways I changed as a person. I stopped having other people's admiration and respect and appreciation be one of my core, main, sole motivators in life. It's almost entirely a good thing, but it's also part of why I lost the spark for tricking. So that's why I feel like it'll have to be a stray spark that by pure chance just happens to hit me and catch fire and give me a completely different motivation for tricking. I just spat everywhere. Long frickin' story short, when it comes to my future with tricking, I'm gonna do it the same way that I always have. I'm not putting a limit on anything. My skill level and my desire to trick on any given day are far, far lower than they used to be. And that'll make it harder to get back into to some degree, because that disconnect from what I know that I can do and actually have done is tough to reconcile. But I'm not saying no to anything. Whatever happens, happens. And if I never get back to a reasonably high level, so be it. I'm open to whatever. And dare I say, no. I was gonna say, dare I say I'm satisfied? Of course not. No, I'm not satisfied. I am really far from satisfied. I am proud. I'm extremely proud and happy with what I've achieved. But dear Lord, am I not satisfied, and I will never be satisfied, ever. It doesn't matter what I ever achieve. I don't think satisfaction is something that really knocks on my door. And I recall Phil Gibbs saying the same thing. There was one time in his entire tricking career where he felt, you know, Phil, you did a good job. And I think that was dub. I think that was the only time, is what he said. I was a bit luckier in a sense, where there were a lot of moments throughout my time with tricking where I felt ridiculously satisfied for a short amount of time after achieving something I had worked so hard to get. But that's a double-edged sword, again, because when you're satisfied, you may not work as hard. I don't know if it's unhealthy to be satisfied, though. I don't know if I would as readily encourage never feeling satisfaction as other people would, but I understand it at the same time completely. Life is weird, man. Everything is more complex than a lot of people think they are, and basically everybody wants them to be. But one constant throughout all of that is that tricking is pretty freaking cool. And I guess if I'm gonna end on anything, it should be that. Because tricking is pretty freaking cool. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for everything. There is more to come with this channel. Some old stuff in new videos, maybe a bit of new stuff here and there. We'll see. I'm open to it. I'm not gonna say no. Unless it's to drugs. Sometime, most of the time. Have a good one.